Hello everybody again. As mentioned, my name is Samantha and I'm going to be hosting with Bana. So last week on this very day, on Thursday, a report was released by the SRT team that detailed the violations post the passing of the Anti-Homosexuality Act 2023, and that is the violation towards LGBT persons. So one of the feedback, a few things that people were saying is, it's complicated, you don't understand, Zungulunji, ABCD. So today we are really just getting into that report to, first of all, understand it and to understand the implications, what that means, but also to have a conversation around what we can do or what is being done or how we can move forward. And we pray that and hope we're engaging on this space. We do not plan to be pastors and have no one respond. Please ask questions in the comments, give us feedback. Yes. So I will start with a question that goes to everybody. Before the report, just an assessment, because all of you have, the introduction has been, I work here, I do that. So there's an assumption that you did not mushroom because of this report. You've been working. I would love a sort of a feel of the human rights space or towards LGBT people before this bill was passed. What did that look like? And anybody can go.
Hi, Pepe again. I'll give a shot at that question. The human rights situation for LGBTIQ persons in Uganda has not been safe, really. When we look back to 2009, when the first bill was introduced, which we fought on until 2014, when it was nullified by the Constitutional Court, you'd expect that because the law had been nullified and was not functioning anymore, that the society would have, evolved or, taken a leaf from that time. But after 2014, because it was really, really a hard and long battle, a lot of people, in the activist space, in the human rights spaces, kind of took a step back to catch their breath. And we sort of saw what seemed like a very quiet period of time for violations of LGBTIQ persons. But that didn't mean that they were not happening. We saw a number of deaths that were happening. We made statements, we tried to follow up and so on. But then in a way they were a bit isolated. Excuse me. And then, towards the pandemic, which affected the whole country and the whole world, we still found out that the way access to, for instance, health services, access to maybe safe spaces to live was a challenge for LGBTIQ persons. Many were forced to go back either to their parents' homes or their guardians' homes or live with their lovers. And we saw that during that period, there were some cases of intimate partner violence. There was coercion and sort of a way to try and correct people's sexualities and gender identities for those who went home, who are forced to go to church, who are forced for, sort of an exorcism because they were trying to remove the demon of homosexuality out of them. Just to mention a few for that time. And then fast forward to 2021, the pandemic is sort of, we are getting cleared of it and we are getting into, trying to get back into our normal lives. Lives were not really normal anymore. The banishment from homes was still happening. Intimate partner violence was happening. Arrests were happening. During particularly COVID, actually, there was arrest of people from a shelter of homeless LGBTIQ persons who were living, and they were behind bars for over 50 days, right? And then later on, there was also another arrest of about 44. So there were those trends, but they seemed a little bit like they were isolated. But then we come to 2022, August, when Sexual Minorities Uganda's activities were halted by the NGO Bureau. And SMAG has been the network for LGBTIQ persons. So that meant that our services, our outreaches being halted, that meant that there were community members who were lacking access to any form of protection and access to very many things, social, health, going to the shop and stuff like that. And then when we fast forward to 2023, of course, by December, we're already hearing through the grapevine that the parliament was going to bring a law. And then February, that's when the rumor became louder and louder. In March, voila, we see the parliament discussing, a law. But it wasn't even like really a discussion. But the moment it was mentioned, violations picked up. They picked up in the way that because in Uganda, when you speak in the local language about Eteeka, whether it is still being discussed, whether it's just being drafted, whether no one has seen what the content is, to the layman, it means it is something that is already existing. So just from that period of time, violations began, and that is arbitrary arrests, evictions, and some of them we tried to mitigate them and they were not on the high. But then when the president signed, we really saw a surge. We saw violations across the country increasing. Because I don't want to dominate the mic, I would like to pass it on after giving that bit of background of what the situation is in the country.
Thank you, Pepe. Who wants to go next? Oh, Ruth.
It's Grace.
Oh, Grace.
I also want to mention that most of our rural areas, before this bill was introduced, I think in 2014, things were not done the way they've been done this time around. Everyone got concerned, everyone got involved. The one who sells tomatoes got involved, but the border riders, everyone was concerned because it was branded in a way that every parent, every Ugandan had to stand up. I remember when they were just going to introduce it, it affected some schools in rural areas whereby some teachers lost their jobs, maybe just because of their dressing code, maybe just because of rumors around. But then, I'd never seen people doing strikes, forcing the president to sign. I saw strikes happening. I saw people sponsoring these communities to carry out protests, making banners, making poems. They went to nursery schools, gave poems to these young kids, telling them about homosexuality, how parents have done harm to them by accepting homosexuality. So it became so worse. Now, people didn't really understand what LGBT persons are. Who are they? So people kept on assuming when someone points a finger to you, you're a homosexual. Then violence started. Some bars before they were accepting LGBT persons, they saw a trans woman dancing. They said maybe she's drunk. They don't mind. But this time around, we saw people being beaten in bars, which wasn't happening before. But the border riders saying, "I'm not going to raid you." I've seen people being chased out of restaurants. So it was worse on everything, on every basic need. I remember tipping a man in a salon and it became so problematic. They looked at him, his friends, he returned the money. So it has been so unsafe for anyone this time around. I think in 2014, people were able to take water, to go in bars. At least, I'll say violence was happening, but this time around, it is worse. Whereby people have been suspended from schools, work, everything. This time around, it's very worse. Thank you.
So my question to Ruth is the same, but just as a person who has said a media, is there, like, since we're comparing the scope before and the scope now, what was the kind of news you were getting before and the kind of news you're getting now? Is it does the influx, and if there is or if there's none, certain other categories, types, stuff like that? Thank you so much.
I think for me to jump into this question on the situation for queer people, 2023, the period before 2023, and these are three segments I'd love for us to look at in this regard. For the movement, for the LGBTI movement in Uganda, we had the period before 2014 when we had that bill, the first anti-homosexuality law of 2009 to 2014. That period of organizing, of people coming together into coalitions, having allies strongly come together when that bill came along. Then we have the period between 2014 and 2002 where we have seen the LGBT movement strongly lean into the freedom of association and assembly. We've had so many organizations come up during that period that has created a lot of, I think, attention towards the issue of human rights of LGBT people, diverse human rights of LGBT people, and how those are presenting for us as human rights movements or as general everyday society. We thought during the period of 2014 to 2022 that the anti-gay movement had actually been won over. We had victory in 2014. We enjoyed some semblance of freedom or of rights for LGBT people because the law then wasn't attacking our association, our organizations. It simply came onto the issue of sexual acts between people of the same gender, and we continue to organize as LGBT people, created social spaces, created clinics, and I think the anti-gay movement the anti-rights movement was recognizing what we're doing, and the force with which we've seen them reorganize starting 2002 when we saw them come after SMAG, because we need to understand that systematic effort with which they came in. That first of all, you come and take away the space, the collective space. Sexual Minorities Uganda is known to be a space that brings together different LGBTI organizations, different allies on the issue. And the anti-movement understood that was a strong point, dismantled that by ensuring that SMAG doesn't register, SMAG is closed down. That's where we see all of us starting to go into, okay, that something else might come up at this point. We start to go into a state of panic. Then we realize that these people had actually been doing so much advocacy that we saw other religious groups beyond the Christian, the religious fundamentalists that we thought to be Christians, now recruiting the Muslim face, the Muslim factor coming into this anti-gay conversation. That with this current law, we have seen a Muslim be the pusher of this bill on parliament, who wasn't the face before. There was that change that we also need to recognize, the political factor where they played us. There was this person coming in and then they realized that there could be another radical force, Muslim extremists. The Muslim member of parliament pushes this bill. We have Muslims do protests and rallies and give that pressure to the president. It comes back to the parliament. They have to pass it quick. It goes back. That push again and again. And I think in terms of media, we saw the role that mainstream media played in that period between August 2022 and when the bill actually becomes an act. So many stories that were being documented about LGBTI people, the topic of we're recruiting children, we're targeting children, but not allowing themselves as a mainstream media to fully interrogate that conversation and say, okay, where is this coming from? Where is this conversation about recruiting children coming from? In reality, we saw this being kicked off by a conversation about sexual abuse between the Budo story, where a teacher is sexually assaulted a child, which is a conversation that would have thought that media, in all its exposure that it has had, would have taken that conversation and questioned the issue of sexual violence between children and adults. That's not a homosexual relationship. We needed to have progressive conversations. We thought that media at this point was not going to do what 2014, 2009 media had done, choosing to step away from the actual issue and scapegoating with the LGBTI movement. But I think also in terms of the fact that media or spaces for talking had opened up. We have so much social media reaches so far. We've seen so many people talk on TikTok uncensored about LGBT issues, so many misinformed narratives that have gone around. And because these exist on Beyonce's internet, no one has control of it. It has to be. So the narratives were widespread. The impact of conversations on the anti-gay conversation in 2023 had a much bigger, they spread faster. Anti-gay narratives were spreading a lot faster than what we saw. Yes, because of the internet. Yes, because mainstream media has decided consistently to be lazy and go with stories that will sell, other than fully interrogating what the issue is. And I think for us as like I said, the period between 2014 and 2022 allowed us as LGBTI movement to organize our spaces that were allowing us to speak, to have space to talk back and say, no, that is not what is going on. No, the ex-gay movement is sharing these narratives for clout. We, of course, we try to speak back. We try to handle issues of misinformation. We try to share positive narratives of what the actual or lived realities of LGBTI people are on ground. But the impact has been there. Negative impact spreads a lot faster. But we're also very positive that the anti-gay movement has had that time to spread their misinformation. And we, as a LGBT movement or activists, are simply responding to a situation we can handle. There'll be ways for us to handle that miscommunication. And maybe with time, also, the truth or the authenticity within what we speak as human rights activists or LGBTI people will also counter that misinformation. It's still open space. We are grateful for spaces that still allow us to have spaces like this where we talk and discuss openly.
Before we go into the next, but actually, kind of, okay, I wouldn't say trigger is a heavy word, but we never knew where that story ended with those students.
There was a journalist.
Because the Continent sent a journalist and he was arrested for trespass because we wanted to ask what happened. So the issue really wasn't child abuse now, was it? It really was not. Even the ginger teacher. What happened to that story?
Like what really happened to that story? Anyway, for me, before we dive into the content of the report, because that's our next direction, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'll be reading some of your comments, so don't hesitate to comment. But if you want to comment but anonymously, it's still okay. You can just inbox the Open Hearts Twitter page and I will be able to read your comments. Just inbox anonymous. If you want to be public, you can share your comment. I'll be opening up the mics later on after we discuss some of the key findings of the report and some of the next steps, and then we'll have 10 to 15 minutes of just everyone providing feedback and asking questions and everything in between. So next key findings of the report. I want to direct this first to Pepe, because Pepe is on the strategic response team. Pepe, some of his numbers are very alarming. 100 and something, 300, all the numbers are alarming. Yeah. And I know we'll discuss further some of the action points from this report and some of the recommendations, but could you give us a brief background on the methodology? How did we come to these numbers? What do these numbers represent?
Thank you so much, Bana. You say 100 is alarming. I wish you knew how many numbers we were looking at to sieve those. So we have in the community, we have crisis responders that we call REACT. These are individuals who offer their time to document any form of violation that happens based on someone's sexual orientation or gender identity or expression. And for the REACT program or protocol has been running for close to 8 years. And when I opened, I was saying that violations have sort of shifted, and they've shifted for the worst. And when we created at the time, as SMAG, when we created REACT, we were seeing a lot of rise in violations, especially in access to health services. So that's why we had created that. But then along the way, we are like, why don't we incorporate more other violations so that we can have holistic take on what the situation really is in the country. So these crisis responders are across the country. We work in partnership with other LGBTQ and civil society organizations to just try and make sure that we are monitoring the space, we are monitoring the situation in the country. And so these crisis responders came together, sieved out cases, and every time we'd have feedback with them, they would say like, it's overwhelming for us out there. There are so many cases. And sometimes when you're looking through the cases and you're verifying, and you look at the resources that you have to respond to these cases, definitely the resources are much lower than what is needed. And, you know, the one thing that was really overwhelming was evictions, and a couple of our reactors as well. They were documenting for other people while they were homeless themselves, because the position in which they were was like, our job is to rescue people. But then we're like, but you have to be rescued first. You have to be safe for you to be able to document these cases. Of course, they managed to get support and continue doing the work. So there were a series of meetings of reviewing and viewing all the numbers that had come in. The numbers put together were over 500. And yet it was not the complete statistics of what had been documented. But then there was the task of making sure that the cases are verifiable. So if there's an eviction, is there a contract or an agreement for the place the person is renting? Is there a letter or warning for eviction? Or are there messages on phone or whatever for you to verify that case that actually there was an eviction? But while I'm talking about eviction, in Uganda, most people do not offer you a tenancy agreement. If you ask, they think you have rugezi, like, you know, people are afraid of courts. People are afraid of courts, so they're like, so they refuse to give you the house even, yeah? But sometimes you compromise, you're like, we had started on a good foot. Let me what? Let me not push this person by asking for a contract. And then, when you're kicked out of your house because they suspect you to be gay or something, they are not going to give you a letter. Yeah? The thing is, they evict you in the middle of the night. So how do you verify such a case? So they had to be, you know, there's the evaluation thing called outcome harvesting, where you have to listen and everything. So some of the verifications were done that way by going on the ground and speaking to people, and also getting people's consent that in the event that they are called upon, that they would give testimonies or witnesses. So many of the cases, we could not find any form of verification for them. But the ones that we managed to document, there are 108, there are 176, and so on. Those are actual cases that were verified. This report was supposed to have come out in June. So from June to last week, we were busy trying to make sure that the cases are verifiable. And before that, when the law was petitioned, there needed to also be some evidence, because we had put in an injunction. An injunction means that people's lives are in danger, so the law must be stopped, which of course has not been listened to up to now. But at that time, we were only able to pull out about 50 cases that were verifiable. And I'm really happy with the product right now, that through the reactors, through the people who helped us review the document and edit the document, we were able to get this. But I should tell you that the numbers are way higher than the ones that are alarming you.
Thank you, Pepe. I wanted to just get a picture of maybe Ruth will jump in here. You talked about the methodology. So how does this all come together in the strategic response team? How do we bring all these different actors into the strategic response team, from the reactors to the lawyers to the people on the ground to an grassroots LGBTQ person who has experienced violence? How does this all come together into the SRT, the team, and then the report itself? Because I do understand that while you have a mechanism, in other areas the mechanism is not available, but still we have to report on those violations and those things that are happening. So how does this all come together into this one report?
SRT is a mechanism that came up after the closure of SMAG, because, like I said, the moment the network was shut down, that meant that there were people in the community that are deprived of access even to other organizations. So SRT was monitoring the community safety situation, and then, of course, when when we were sure that the law was now going to be discussed, a number of groups came together and formed the Convening for Equality. So Convening for Equality was this, it was a rapid response mechanism for advocacy and, to bring all of us together to say, let's bring our voices together, because together we are stronger and we can fight. So in trying to create roles and how CFE can effectively, coordinate and run a one voice, there are different clusters. There's the legal cluster that is dealing with the legal issues, the petitions, and so on. There's media, because we have to monitor the trends that are in the media. Also the media, because anytime you can wake up and your face is not on the front page. But there's monitoring of the media. But remember, while these two entities are working, the advocacy team is also there, because we need people who have to continue the conversation and keep speaking. And as I said, all of us would receive a case of someone being violated. And then, because SRT was already doing that, other members of CFE are also doing that. I think it goes without saying that there are so many groups that are documenting violations because they're actual violations that are happening. If they were not there, then you wouldn't have the Eastern Ugandan group documenting that side, the Western, the Northern, and even Central. So the fact that there are very many different groups, that shows that violence is very present. But again, to be organized and to have that collective voice, there had to be an oversight over all the documentation that was happening across the country for violations. Although some of them are not in this report, because you have to seek consent from people and so on. So some cases were left. And some of the cases, we are sure that we fact checked and made sure that they were not duplicated with other organizations. So these are, I would comfortably say, entirely those that have been done by the entities that are under SRT, and then for Convening for Equality. I hope that briefly kind of explains how it all comes together. So you have the people who are monitoring safety, the people who are monitoring advocacy, legal, and media all come together, and then the co-conveners of CFE then are the ones who carry our collective voices, which have been ramped up from the grassroots.
Thank you, Pepe. I think Pepe puts that really well in terms of how all these moving pieces come together for us to ensure that there is responsive mechanisms in place to tackle this current act. Because I think it amazes me, but we continue to learn from what the anti-gay movement has actually done to make us get to this point. That the anti-gay movement had the Basaliras, had the Anita Mongos, all those are moving pieces. They had the Elisha piece, they have the Semper pieces. All those are moving pieces that ensured that the fight for human rights of LGBTI people comes to this current state where we're at. The convening for equality, as Pepe has put it, we understood that also as different entities that are interested in seeing that there's protection and promotion of human rights of LGBTI people, not human rights of that are tied to our sexual orientation, but first of all, our human rights as people, as human beings, protected and promoted. And we put together the different pieces that, as Pepe has put it, the media, the SRT team, the legal, the rapid response entities, to ensure that we are able to respond to one of the most interesting questions, where you saw that when this anti-gay conversation was kicking off, mainstream media always kept bringing up the issue that LGBTI people are actually not affected by these laws. When we say we are actually being violated, they will say, where's the evidence? When we put out the evidence, they'll say, you're exaggerating. You can't win. Yeah, we really can't win, which is why when you saw most times the anti-gay movement will always need someone who proclaims to be an ex-gay, who will have to be at the forefront at that conversation, who wants us to step forward and start defending ourselves as organizers on we're not recruiting children, we're not paying for these sexual favors, we're not, I don't know, sexual favors is a wrong word, but I don't know who is doing that. Looks like that, but the numbers are really like you said in the beginning, alarming. But there's a statement we also need to be aware of that was put in the press statement on the large number of cases that haven't been documented, haven't been reported, because there are queer people who don't even know that we have these systems within the movement where you can report these violations. It's a question that Samantha brought up at the beginning, where the people have been asking, why can't we go to the police with these numbers? And we're saying, okay, we've done our part, and we're saying that you, the people we're supposed to report to about these numbers, you're also recorded as the largest number of perpetrators of this violence. So if a policeman is a perpetrator of doing these forced annual examinations, it's a part of forced evictions, who am I going to report to at my local area police about the violation that I'm actually facing as a lesbian woman, as a gay man, when the perpetrators are actually the people who are supposed to hold the law in place? So right now we're doing what we can as the movement. We're speaking about these violations. We're making sure that people understand that there are actual numbers. There is actual cost to lives by ensuring that having these bad laws in place costs life, and these are the numbers that go with that.
But you're also answering the most asked question when it comes to our needs. There's no data to support your requests. No, all the time. We need this. There's no data. There's data. The 180 homeless people. Right. Anyway, so Grace, I need to ask you, who are the perpetrators? Especially now, I'd love Ginger has really, really come out as one of the districts that has had the most... There's a week when Grace was on radio every day. They would mention this human being's name, and then the same place that had the riot, the Muslims that were marching around the town. It's the same place that had the teacher. Ginger's really been going through it. So, just who are the perpetrators? Both but also basically who are the perpetrators?
I'll start with media. Media has a great impact. We have been with very, very crazy media personalities, and I mentioned some radio stations like Busoga FM, NBS. They even had a special, for Busoga 1, they had a special program that started at 6 up to 8, talking about homosexuality. These are the names of homosexuals. So that week, at least they were talking their names. Then the second week, his mother is called, his father is called, his grandfather is called. So they did a lot of harm. I'll mention that media did a lot of harm. Then there's some landlords that were like, Zakastosa Sula, my Kamane, I don't mind. But then, the panic from media, they've had your name there. The next thing you see is, you're evicted. So, from media, we get to the landlords. But I'll make sure that landlords were doing this just because most of them were panicking. I remember on the issue of the teacher of PMM girls, it is Busoga one that said, please parents, go and pick your children from school. In 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, over 100 parents were there. Our children are rotting, our children are rotting, our children are rotting. Then I sent someone there.
You have a child at
No. I have a friend somewhere, an official friend. I asked him, please, when you reach there, ask them, how many children? We also want numbers. How many children are rotting? And by the way, this case, the way it ended, even the one who was saying was rotting didn't appear. Did not appear, but they were saying 50% of the girls were rotting because the teacher was putting what objects. There were no numbers. Then I'll talk about police. We have a new trend in Ginger of pornography. I think police all the time on pornography. The new trend is police is using pornography to arrest people. So they'll go and see someone who looks like you at least somehow. They'll be like, we have your video. Yeah. Me, I said, if you have my video, put it on TV. It's a new trend. So, the first thing they tell you, how much are you giving us? It started like a joke. I wasn't paying attention to it. Then I saw they were asking people, we have your videos, we have your videos. The next thing, we have your video. They were saying, they have my video. I was like, yee. So the guy called me. Can you raise 2 million? I was like, even if it is 50K, I don't have it. Put the video in newspapers. Because I was sure I didn't have the video. Even when I met him and asked him the videos that he was claiming he had, Bambi brought a video from Nigeria. Because someone had beards and someone was looking like them. A video from Nigeria. So police is using porn. They will get someone who looks like you. I don't know if we are seen like porn stars. And then also some service providers. Really, if I've come to make my hair, why are you concerned about the rest? Like some of us, we go and plant hair, we go and do what? You make your nails. Not painting nails, but of course everyone makes their nails. So some service providers, also perpetrators, they'll take your pictures when you don't know. They'll take videos when you don't know. Before you know it, you're in some WhatsApp group. And then the parents. Parents have been fed by wrong information. I had a parent saying that she tested the child to see if he's a homosexual or not. And how? Namugamba kutama. Bend. Remove your pants. Then I put my finger inside. Actually, police does the same, I think. Forceful annual examinations. So parents, they have it in mind. Is my child gay or not? How can I prove? Bend down, put your legs up, I'll put my finger. So people are being dehumanized by parents and then disowned by parents. But it's all coming still from media and then church. Religion, oh my God, I'm a good Christian, a born again, hallelujah. Church has done a lot of harm. Muslims, actually, they were the best this time around. They made t-shirts and moved around. They made banners, moved around, singing. Then I asked them, we've had a lot of poverty in Ginger and Jiggers. When are you protesting against Jiggers? So, religious leaders have also done a lot of harm. They're also perpetrators, going on radio, marching, getting children from school to join the protests, moving the old ginger. So, those are the people that I've seen that are perpetrators and have done a lot of harm.
Thank you very much, Stone. I was just checking if we have any comments, but clearly we don't have any comments yet. But there were some people who were requesting to speak, so we'll open up the mics in a few. However, I just want us to just dive into our last section, the evening of our space, which are some of the legal steps and what are some of the next steps. Where are we taking this report? Is it just going to be report and then next year we do the same thing? And where are we taking the report? And then also an update on some of the legal machinations. How far with the court cases? How far with the challenges to the law? I don't know. I'll start with Ruth, then Pepe, then Stone.
Earlier this week, we saw that the Constitutional Court is organizing itself to start organizing. It's organizing to start organizing to listen to the to the petition, and if they are organizing to start organizing, at least we're hopeful that part of the evidence that the legal team representing CFE or under CFE, because that is part of also interventions by CFE having legal responses, guided by our partners at Chapter 4, HIRAV, and others, will be taking part of this report, verifiable data from this report that says these are the number of people who have actually been affected by this law. This is proof that this is actually a bad law that is costing us in terms of human resource, because queer people are losing the right to employment, losing earning, yet we're still being asked to pay so much black tax and also contribute to VAT and whatever, things that we're still... You're blackmailed to pay. Maybe this is a case that we should be taken to police. Yeah. We really believe that having these numbers will help with our case in terms of evidence for their petition. When they finally come to that point where they say, now we're ready to hear, we're ready to listen, there'll be evidence as documented under CFE responses, the SRT.
Ruth has, of course, touched on some of the things that we'll do. Some of the victims or survivors that are documented in the report are willing to step up, and they're willing to, go through. To even think of it, it's really painful. They will have to. Some have agreed that their cases should be followed up. So one thing I didn't probably mention is that within the SRT, we also have lawyers that have been walking the journey with some of these survivors. But also for some of the cases, they are getting psychosocial or psychotherapy for them to prepare them, because we want these cases to go to the Human Rights Commission. We want the perpetrators to be held accountable, be it a parent or be it a police officer. So there's preparation to support those who want their cases followed up and their perpetrators followed up. In terms of the law, this confusing thing that Uganda has called conferencing. It's like you go and you first go and bang jazz. You have Luali. It's so because there are 3 petitions, there's petition 14, petition number 15, and petition 16. Of course, for the CFE, we are on the first 2, the petition number 14 and petition 15. However, because there are this number of cases that have been brought to court's attention, because most of what we are pleading for or asking in the contents of the application is almost similar. So usually what court does, it allows you space, you as petitioners, as your counsel, especially counsels, to discuss how they can enjoin, like get all that together to make one petition. So ultimately, we'll all be having one petition for the court to hear. I think one, it's, court's time and so on. So on 2nd October, the first step of conferencing happened. But from our councils, it looks like nothing much was done. So there needs to be more stuff done on October 12th. So right now, there's really not much to report to the community about court processes, just that we have to definitely be on the lookout. And for those who want to be going to these hearings and so on, of course, there will be a safer way communicated to you on how you can be part of the challenge that is happening. But I think one of the things, I hope I'm not sounding like I'm my call out too early in the show, is that whoever is being violated, their mechanisms, please reach out so that you can get help. There are various groups, but even through this space, you can DM Open Hearts or Kuchu Times, and the cases will reach the necessary or the various groups that can try and support your case. But also report to police, report those cases. We need to hold the bull by the horns. I know it's difficult, but it's through difficulty that we actually create change.
So someone was asking around the issue of in the media, there are 3 or 4 people, prominent people, that they were arrested for quote-unquote homosexuality. And yet we are seeing all these cases of arrests and detention as detailed in the report. Someone is saying they are seeing the media and they are seeing what's in the report. How do we align what is in the report? Because we have the evidence of what's in the report and what is in the media and what is because you just mentioned police records, that we need people to go and report to the police, but the police maybe it also goes back to what are people being arrested for, and what is the charge against them.
So aligning our reports or our documentation to the cases, of course, we also follow up on what the media reports, and some of them have been extracted and included in the report, maybe not very explicitly, but some of those that we managed to verify are part of the report. Our police, first of all, and the way people are being arrested, most of them are being arrested to extort money out of them. So some of the cases do not even reach. They do not reach that stage of writing down a case. But the intimidation that you receive is that, you're promoting homosexuality. Maybe they found you two men or 2 women, or same-sex persons holding hands or even having a drink. They will assume you're on a date, and then they take you because maybe there's champagne or there's some gold reserve on your table. They're like, these ones have money, let's go for them. And then they take you in and they claim that, you're promoting homosexuality out of that fear. Of course, because of the because of the intimidation, then everything turns into blackmail and extortion of money. So a lot of the cases are that way. But some of the cases that have been reported, for instance, the sorority case, there's another case in Western Uganda. These, they claim there's actually evidence that they were engaged in sex activities. Some really, even in the media, even the police themselves who arraigned the persons have no evidence of any sexual intercourse between the persons. So a lot of it is really assumed. A lot of it is what people call gay panic. Another is that people are trying to be relevant. So they think that because, the other one is sort of like a counter or like a backlash because we're in court. So people are like, hey, we know the courts might listen to these homosexuals. So let's take the law into our hands. Some officers actually proudly think they are implementing the law on behalf of the country because the government will not. They forget that they're part of government. Yeah. So the charges are usually really watered down and out of scare tactics. The 4 cases, the claim is that there's evidence that they actually were involved in sex. I think one was sex with a minor, which of course there's already an existing law for defilement and underage sex, cutting across genders.
So sharing on here to say here's how you're going to get this support, I don't think it's going to help our systems. But anyone who is seeking support, we know that so many queer people belong to organizations. The movement hasn't died out. We've gone underground to ensure that we can survive this current period. But please go through your other channel, those channels that were established before. Community organizations are still responding to requests through their members, and then through the systems that those community organizations know, they'll reach out to the SRT teams, and then support can be directed to queer people who actually need that help.
Thank you, Ruth. Also, like Pepe mentioned earlier, inboxes are really open. So if you get stuck, do not hesitate to inbox Open Hearts, inbox Kuchu Times, inbox CFE, someone will be able to reach out. So La Gazette, you want to say something? Please, in 1 minute, yeah?
Yes. Hi. I came to also ask for, like, it was as you before you said that the part that people are still active, but I think my inquiry was on where to donate if somebody has access to some resources that they want to share. I kind of reached out to a few people on Instagram, but I haven't really heard back from them. And I just wanted to hear if, I guess maybe I came to understand if people had shut down shop, I guess.
All right. So, thank you. I think your question is around how you can reach out, support, donate, and also where you can get resources. I think yes, there was a resource question. So I think I will. I think I will have Sama and Pepe just provide those resources. Before we close, just some last words from the people here with me. So I'll start with Grace, then Ruth, then Pepe, and then we close.
Okay, thank you. I want to appreciate SRT and CFE. There's something unique this time around. Almost all communities have been involved. At least we have someone we can reach out to. In Busia, in Bujiri, everywhere. It's something very unique. We've tried at least to reach out to everyone. At least we have a focal person there who brings back the information. I want to mention that I believe the process of court and what it's a bit long. But then how are people going to survive? For leaders, let us try to bring back the allies, not allies. Let us try to bring back the allies on board because they had a role that they were playing. I mentioned about the health sector, media, and other sectors. We had allies, even somewhere, we had allies. But because of this bill, they ran away. We need to bring them back, at least as people struggling in court and trying out. But us down there on the ground, we need to do something to see at least things are a bit back to normal. People are able to get health services. People are able to go in bars freely. People are able to do things freely without this ongoing hatred. Thank you. But also, it's high time for us to be extremely careful. Dear listeners, please leave Grindr, leave those dating apps. They're going to slaughter you.
For me, I would say that I strongly believe that, we want the allies. We want people to speak for us. We want to know that we're not fighting alone, and we've gotten a lot of support from different entities that have stood with us since the formation of CFE. We've seen solidarity campaigns happening across the world, people standing with the Ugandan movement, and that support has been really great for us, and it continues to be. But also this time around, there's a statement in the press statement that Dr. Mungisha made about how this is an example of how over the last 10 years, Uganda has been a test ground for how bad policies become laws, I think. And we've seen what the last 10 years have done for the Ugandan movement and the reaction that has come out of it, which is the current struggle that we're having. I think in the next 10 years, first of all, as a movement, we have to be cautious about how we organize. This current struggle, this current fight, this current legal fight with this current law that we have in place we don't want to see a repeat of this 10 years down the road. There has to be a strong stand from we, the movement, from any person who understands that the simple act of violating human rights of a minority community does not mean that you, a majority community, are safe. Because perpetuators and violators always want to test with a smaller subject. They come for the homosexuals. You say, yeah, let's get them. Then they'll come for the short people. I don't know. I'm saying like minority communities get picked off slowly by slowly until there's no one left apart from you who has been standing on the sideline and saying they're not going to come for me. It is safe. I can support this. And it's for us as a movement, we have to be very intentional about how we organize at this current point in time. We've seen this law get duplicated, making a point for that statement that Uganda has been a test ground, because this law has been taken and is being duplicated in Kenya. We are seeing the rise in Tanzania. We have seen it happen in Burundi. We are seeing what is happening in Ethiopia. We're seeing what Ghana, the conversation is, what Nigeria's conversations have been, even the southern part of Africa where we thought that there's been a progress. We're seeing the pushback. And even in progressive spaces like the UK or the US where anti-trans conversations have taken root. And I think this is a point where we need to fully understand what the issues, the factors that have pushed us to this point and be intentional about engaging them. Political conversations must be had by all of us. We must be willing to step up and take this conversation where it's going. Like, politicians have been the biggest carriers of anti-gay rhetoric in Uganda because they base upon it for them to come back in the next election. We saw Anita Among in her statements of those who don't vote for these members of parliament that have voted for this bill, this law. If you don't vote for them, then you're the homosexual. Such threats that are being used by politicians to get that political mileage. Then maybe we also have to take ourselves to that table and have political conversations to say that if our lives as LGBTI people can be used as political chess pieces, maybe we have that political influence to get involved actively.
I think the space has been good enough for us to bring some things to light. I think as much as the situation is looking so dire and really hopeless and helpless, I want to reassure persons in the community that this is not the end. We keep fighting. For us, it's about life and death, whereas for some people, it's about the dollar, it's about fame, it's about whatever. But for us, it's about worrying about not taking the next breath in case you step out, or maybe you're found in your house and burnt down and all that. We live with all that, those fears. But there's hope. And for me, one of the things that really inspires me, as someone who has been doing this work for technically over 20 years, is the fact that amidst this law, I'm seeing young people saying, I am queer. What you gonna do about it? Okay? So for me, really that inspires me a lot, because in a way I see my bravery at 15 when I stood up against bullies. And when I see I was of course underage, but I knew who I was, and I didn't want anyone to mess with who I was, and I continue to carry myself that way. But today, with all the spaces that are there, TikTok, people don't use Facebook is where parents go and mourn because their kid has come out on TikTok. There's X, people are out there, and who you are is really not taught. Like, no one can ever teach you to be heterosexual when you're not. You cannot live your full life when there's just a section of you that is being out there. So I encourage people to continue to believe in themselves and be themselves. We know that it's not safe, but also silence will not save you. So find that one person that you can speak your truth to, and hope that when you're celebrating, when you're crying, that there's someone else you can share with. I think our spaces remain to be safe spaces on air, but those that are also physically there exist. This report, continue to circulate it, because they're still saying out there that these numbers are unbelievable, it's not happening, the law is not being implemented. The report is a testament, and I am here speaking to you confidently, because it's not a report that they are going to push away just so easily like they've done in the past. I want to leave with 2 milestones that have excited me this year, or particularly maybe this past 2 months. One is Kenya. As much as, the radicals, the conservative, people who don't even know anything about our culture have also infiltrated Kenya. We saw the Supreme Court upholding its decision for Nigolak to be an entity that operates legally in the country. 2 is Mauritius. Mauritius, just a couple of days ago, probably the island that these homophobes want to throw us at should be Mauritius. Yeah, Mauritius has opened up to criminalizing discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And I believe that it's not all lost in Uganda. Yes, we're testing ground. That says a lot about what type of people we are as Ugandans. It means that we are resilient, right? When the fight for HIV, we were leading, and the model that Uganda was using was used elsewhere. Models of agriculture, there are so many that have been picked from Uganda. This model of homophobia, unfortunately, I wish they could not take it anywhere so we can kill it, bury it in Uganda. Like, this should be, I think our presence alone shows the world and shows the homophobes and transphobes that it will not survive here. It's just very temporary. It's going to go away. We are going to continue living our lives very proudly, and our holistic lives we will achieve. But also, finally, as we go about doing our work, we need to find systematic and sustainable ways to economically be counted. Yes, we pay taxes. We talk about paying taxes, and our bodies and our lives on the line. When you look at the poverty statistics, if you try to fit queer people in that statistics, will probably not appear. And yet the rhetoric out there is that we have a lot of money. If we have a lot of money, why are we some of the poorest people in this country? Where are we the homeless people? Yeah. So people find a way of making yourself economically sound, because we are living in a very capitalistic world, and money talks and bullshit walks. So let's find alternative ways of sustaining ourselves, alternative ways of continuing to rise up and stand up against oppression that is very rampant in this country across the region. Thank you.
Just want to say thank you to everybody that has been on this space with us, but also thank you to the people that ensure that we have this information in a lot of digestible forms. When the report came out, it was feeling a bit ableist because of reading, and but the fact that we've had a space to discuss the report and to have it digested by every queer person in there on diversity has just really been amazing. So I just love to also thank whoever has made that possible. Please, this space is going to be up for the next 3 weeks on the Open Hearts page, and also it's going to be available on the Kuchu Times podcast spaces, that is on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon, on Audible, and on our YouTube channel. So if you ever forget something, if you ever need to prove a point to somebody, send them a link. This is the information that we have. Arm yourself with people. At some point, let us see that maybe it works, that knowledge is actually power. We've been doubting. Yes, knowledge is actually power. So let's. It doesn't have to stop at the school motto. You guys, knowledge is actually power. So yes, if anybody ever comes at you, send them your link and say, but these are the statistics, this is what's happening, this is where I'm coming from, and this is why I'm angry, and this is why I'm doing the things that I do. You have something you can arm yourself with. The report is also the reading version of the report is available on the Kuchu Times website. And if you cannot find it on the Kuchu Times website, just go to Open Hearts on the Kuchu Times Twitter page. You will see, just type SRT. Just even on Twitter in general, because the team that is disseminating the report has really done it, has tried. So everywhere, just type SRT and you'll have the readable version of the report. Have yourselves a good night. We hope that next independence, we shall also be independent. Yeah. Right? We shall also be independent. Yes! Bye!
Some other logistical notes on behalf of Open Hearts. I think we'll be resuming our usual Twitter spaces next week. However, we will not have the midweek and the end week space. We'll have only one space, which will be the Coping Cafe. That will be on Friday. So I'm looking forward to seeing you lovely people again, our Open Hearts people, next week. Also, at the end of this space, I'll be sharing the link to the report that Samantha and everyone has been talking about today. Otherwise, thank you very much for being part of this interesting conversation. Have a lovely evening and a good night.